What's your story? Whether you're a client or an independent financial advisor, we know you face many important decisions that can affect your and your clients' long-term financial success. Welcome to the WIN Podcast, What's Important Now with Corey Heimensen, accredited investment fiduciary and president of Heimensen Wealth Advisors. In this podcast, Corey helps you identify your goals and objectives through financial education and comprehensive planning, while inspiring you to make better behavioral decisions in your personal finance. With a twist on pop culture and current events, join us as we explore growth and protection strategies for individuals, advisors, and their businesses. Come and discover what's important to you now.
Hello and welcome to the WIN Podcast, What's Important Now, with your host, Corey Heimensen. And Corey, it's always great to be with you, but this is an interesting podcast in that you are coming at this one from a slightly unexpectedly different kind of direction this time around. The love of storage? What's going on?
Oh, yeah. What could go wrong with that, huh? So if we haven't already lost every listener, anybody that's listened to a few of these episodes, they know that we try to circle things together, bring it together, and actually create something productive by the end. And I don't know if it's a curse or a blessing, but when I read an unusual statistic or something I find interesting, it immediately makes my mind go to economics and cause and effect and on and on and on. And so
absolutely. Yeah. I totally relate to that, by the way.
And I know I totally understand that not everybody thinks that way, and that's okay. We all want to think differently. But so what I'm calling this today is The Joys of Organization would be the official title of today's episode. But you're right. We're going to start with storage and storage units. I can hear the crowd erupting.
The whole podcasting world just went, what?
And I get it. Just those words, or even the word organization, probably scares some people. But, let's go here. So here's the statistic I read a while back. And basically it says that it's estimated that 13.5 million households in our country currently rent a storage unit.
Wow.
So you do math on that. I mean, that's like 11%, or, a little over 1 out of 10 people are currently renting a storage unit. And you do the math on that and you think, there's no way in hell that can be right, So what did I do? I drove around my city. Why wouldn't I? And I drove around and, I'm in the Midwest and not in a large metropolis, but I didn't realize how many storage units were even available. I shouldn't say available, existing
right
in my city. And then I put pencil to paper and I figured out how many households are in my town. And basically the formula becomes 1 in 5 households in my city have the ability to rent a storage unit because there's that many.
Wow.
And there's only it's less than 1% of them are available for renting today. So that means that, my city is above the curve.
Well, I've seen numbers higher than the 1 in 5. I've seen numbers that suggest 1 in 3, and I all I know is that there must be something to this because storage war units and the whatnot are huge in reality TV. So
it's amazing how much cool stuff people just abandon for those shows.
Right, I know exactly.
I think if you and I went and started buying auctioned units, we would not have as good a luck as the people on TV and those reality shows. I
suspect not. I think I'd probably end up with a bunch of old clothes or something,
We'd be renting dumpsters we'd have to pay to rent dumpsters to dump the stuff we just bought.
Exactly.
Oh,
so when you were looking at these things, why are they so popular? The serious question. I'm laughing as I ask.
Yeah. No, and I looked into that a little bit, and basically, the internet is a never-ending spiral of information if you want to get opinions and things like that. But I was able to really dial it down. There's about 7 reasons, essentially, and we're not going super deep into these, but 7 reasons that seem to be popular reasons or ideas of why people think they need these storage units. And so the first one that pops up is just to offset the stress of moving. Now that maybe makes sense. You're in between houses, it's part of a project, let's say. The second one starts going down the rabbit hole, it's basically to provide more space in your primary home. Now, that doesn't necessarily justify that it's a good idea, but it just means people have too much stuff. Okay, so
look, I've worked for decades in Manhattan, and I can tell you lots of people in New York City apartments rent storage units because they just don't have the space.
well, okay, yeah, that's a fair point. See, I'm used to a different market where people generally live in houses or apartments that are probably too big for what they really need. And in Manhattan, I'm sure it takes a couple dimes a month to rent a crappy apartment, probably.
Oh God, yes.
So yeah, good point. So number 3, some people store vehicles, so maybe they have let's say a convertible and you don't want it outside in the winter, or maybe you don't have parking, if you have an apartment, I don't know. So I'm okay with that one too. Number 4, temporarily organize a home renovation. So, maybe you're remodeling your kitchen or something like that. So again, this kind of falls into an okay reason, I'd say. Number 5 is interesting to me, and I've seen this one firsthand because I deal with a lot of people, but it's to store a loved one's belongings, living or not living. And a lot of times I see it where, somebody loses a loved one, and probably a parent, let's say, and they just don't know what to do with their stuff, but they can't part with it.
Yeah. I've had experience with that. Yes.
And I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to tell people to lay on the couch and open their inner feelings to me. But, life happens and everybody deals with things in different ways. So I get that.
Exactly.
Number 6, summer rental of maybe dorm room items. So maybe you got a kid in college and they travel back home for the summer. That totally makes sense. Good.
No, I'm guilty. I will tell you right up front, I am guilty on that point, because when my kids were in college, it's like, do we want to move this stuff back, or do we just want to rent something for a couple of months here and save ourselves the expense of back and forth and the hassle of back and forth? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I have a daughter that goes to college quite a ways away from where we normally live. And so in the summer, the last 2 summers, we've rented from a large rental place out there.
Yeah.
And I found it interesting that on the document, we put it under her name, teach her some responsibility, and on the document, it says you have to provide proof of renter's insurance on your stuff, or you'd have to pay, I think it was $12 a month extra for essentially buying insurance from them. Well, I said to the person, I'm like, this stuff's not that valuable. And they said,
this is probably like $20 total value.
Yeah,
okay.
And so I said, well, I have homeowner's insurance. We'll just call that good. And they said, no, she signed the document, so your daughter needs to get renter's insurance. Well, hell, that's going to cost, by the time you mess around for a summer rental, we'd be going backwards. So I found it interesting that it's just one more way they can get in your pocket. and it's all credit card or bank drafts. So, once it's turned on, people don't pay any attention to what they're spending, probably. But there you go. Okay. Number 7, to keep business inventory organized, or, I kind of get that. Maybe that's running a business and you just need more storage. So some of these I'm good with. Some of these I'm like, I don't know. Here's my real takeaway from all this. Things that, let's say you're renting a storage unit, it makes sense if it's a short-term event. But I think far too many people are renting these things and forgetting about them, and then years go by, and then that's not a good money event, but again, I'm not here to judge people on that sort of stuff. We're going to tie it into something bigger, right? Because that's what we do.
Yeah.
I think the bigger picture is that the average human is not really built or very good at managing a lot of things in their lives.
Amen.
Yes. And so what I'm saying is, if they don't get a kick out of being super organized, they're going to find easy solutions to just get stuff out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, it really, it's the proverbial kicking the can down the road, or out of sight, out of mind. Like you just said, I've got all this junk. What do? I'm going to move it over here where I don't see it, and I just can't deal with it right now. And now it doesn't exist.
Right. And so this is interesting. So of course I keep digging deeper. So I find a bunch of research and documents, and I didn't steal these. These are public record of publicly traded real estate investment trusts that manage properties like these, in larger places. And so what these companies have behind the scenes is basically research and documents that they refer to as a tenant length of stay. So an LOS, length of stay. And so what this is, if you dig into this, they know on average how long a tenant's going to stay depending on which month they move in. They also know that length of staying is highly correlated to the size of the unit that you rent. I mean, there's a lot of science to this. This isn't just Joe or Jane slapping up a metal building and putting some dividers in there. You know what I mean? This is big business.
Interesting. So what do they tell us? I mean, what can we learn from this? What's the insight it gave you?
Yeah, this is like a 12-page report, and I am not going to read this to our listeners, but a couple of the key takeaways was the larger the unit you rent, the longer you stay. Now, that isn't rocket science, right? You got more stuff in there, so why would you want to move it, right? But I did find that, on average, most people are there it's nearly a year is what the industry average is.
That actually surprises me because I figured it would be longer than a year, to be really honest.
Yeah. You just don't know what to make of it. I mean, and maybe it falls back into those 7 reasons too. You know what I mean? But, and it depends on your market too. In the Midwest, it's, you're not going to spend $100 for a small unit, but you might on the coast or where you're living.
Oh yeah. So tell me, what does that tell us about? I mean, on the surface, it would sound like this is an attempt by people to organize their lives. But as we were just talking about, it also clearly is an attempt to just I can't deal with this right now. I'm moving this. I'm putting it over there where I don't see it. Just get it out of my way.
Yeah, and this can translate beyond stuff or objects. So where it gets into my wheelhouse is people's finances. It's the same damn thing. You got stuff here, you got it there. You don't really want to deal with moving it because you think it's going to be a lot of work. It's that same out of sight, out of mind thing. But eventually, there's a day of reckoning, whether it's a storage unit or your 42 different investment accounts, somebody's going to clean up your mess. And if you don't want your spouse or your kids dealing with a train wreck, then take that step. Reach out to somebody, a trusted advisor. It can be Corey. It can be one of the other thousands and thousands of advisors out there and trusted professionals that can help you get through this, because there are people that help people get organized, whether it's their kitchen or their pantry or their portfolio of stocks and bonds and real estate investment trusts.
Yeah, I probably am as guilty as many of the listeners in that it's like my finances they're not totally disorganized, but they're not as organized as they probably could be, Well,
and I think, again, does it make sense to have one advisor driving your bus and knowing the whole thing? Certainly. But to your point, even bank accounts, how many checking accounts do you have? I mean, there's a lot going on in our lives. Lives are complicated, and that's without all the curves and variables that come along your way. So being organized makes a heck of a lot of sense. And so I'm going to tie this into a professional organizer who I would have never known by name a couple of years ago until my wife started seemingly organizing all kinds of stuff around her house. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, well, it's the Marie Kondo method. You ever heard of Marie Kondo?
I have. Same way you did. Same way you have. Yes.
And of course, I'm like, who is this person? Yeah, I had no ideas, but my wife saw her on TV or read about it or something somewhere. Essentially, she's written books, but she's a so-called expert on helping people get organized.
Yeah.
And so as I'm seeing this event around her house, and I'm thinking, why is she throwing that away? Maybe I like that. I thought I better figure out what's going on here. And so I did a little homework down the rabbit hole again, seeing who this Kondo person is. And the thing that really struck me as interesting is that her point was generally people are always looking for things to throw away. But what they should be doing is finding the things that they want to keep. And then her big tagline is things that make you happy. You know what I mean? If you've got 17 t-shirts, are there 6 of them that maybe make you happy? And if so, keep the 6, donate the other 11, So,
right. No, that makes sense, actually. But that's interesting, because it's like not coming at it from the throw it away standpoint. You're coming at it from a keep it kind of standpoint.
Yeah. And so now years have gone by, and my wife will see me in the garage, and I'm digging through a drawer that is some of the tools that were left when we bought the house like 19 years ago from the previous owner. And I'll say, yeah, boy, this is a pretty nice hatchet. And she says, have you used it? Well, no, I haven't used it in 19 years, and she's like, does it bring you joy? And then instantly I know what the hell she's talking about. And I'm like, yeah, I guess we don't need that anymore. And then a year from now, I'll need a hatchet and I'll give her help. But the concept makes a lot of sense. And this organizer person also suggests, don't say I'm gonna tackle the entire house today. No, find a category, find that t-shirt drawer, find the silverware drawer, whatever it is, start in a small area and just keep the stuff that makes you happy and is functional, of course, And so then the planner in me comes at it in the same way and says, this kind of strikes me that why couldn't a person organize their own finances essentially in the same way? Now, I know not everybody gets a big kick or a big joy out of owning an exchange traded fund in the finance industry, let's say, but the bigger picture is, does that retirement account holding that exchange traded fund potentially give you peace of mind or joy that comes with peace of mind, knowing that there's a benefit down the road or at the end of the rainbow or whatever you want to say?
Well, I think you're onto something in the sense that, and I'm sure these numbers, but CNBC did a survey in the spring of this year, 2023. And the thing that so shocked me is that 70% of Americans surveyed said they were stressed out about money. So I would think, and you're the planner, so you tell me, I would think that if you got a little more organized about your finances, if you got a little more intentional and deliberate about them, it might create a slightly lower level of stress. Is that what you found?
Yeah, I think that's totally right. I see stress from people in 2 ways. The first would be people on the lower end of the scale of net worth, let's say. And so these might be younger people, or they might be people that just haven't done a very good job of accumulating yet. Mm-hmm. So to them, their nest egg isn't as large. And so that is stressful. And you pair that with maybe essentially living paycheck to paycheck or feeling like you're always treading water to try and get ahead. I get it. There's total stress there. On the other end of the spectrum, I get stress from people, or signs of stress, when they're getting, within a few years of retirement. And it doesn't matter if they've got $100,000 or $10 million, that same stress will bubble up to the surface when they get close to that age window, or to that, we call it the finish line of primary careers.
Yeah.
Because that fear is there of, have I done enough? And it is scary. I get it. And we want to get retirement right the first time, right? We don't want people going back to work if they don't have to. Right. If you want to go back to work, great. But we don't want to because the train got off the rails, And so I think there's ways to solve that stress level for both of these camps with communication and planning and understanding. Because, boy, you put me in a room with somebody and I can probably almost talk them off a ledge. Maybe I should have been a hostage negotiator.
Yeah.
Never thought about that till just now. Just hit me. But I mean,
Corey, mediator.
I am really good at explaining things in a simple way. And I'm not here to sugarcoat that, markets can't go down, or there's things that are bad in life and they're part of the trade-off of playing the investment game. But if you weigh the facts, if you look at history, if you have a designed plan in place, man, probability is in your back pocket, head in the right direction, that things will be okay. And so people, young people, people close to retirement, all over the age spectrum, you need somebody you can confide in. and be honest with, and by all means, get your stuff organized.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah,
you deal with people. What's interesting here, Corey, is that you're speaking from a place of practicality because you deal with people who are stressed about their finances, who are worried about whether they've got enough to retire, or if they're doing things okay, and can we get by? This has got to be part of your day-to-day reality, I would think.
Oh, for sure. The average client interaction meeting I have, whether it's a phone meeting or virtual meeting, in-person meeting, we actually spend very little time on the charts and the graphs and the past performance.
Right.
Because what's important is this moment right now in front of you, Mr. or Mrs. Client or prospect, looking forward. You know what I mean? We can't drive this car looking backwards. Let's look out the windshield, and you have to communicate what's important. And honestly, that ties right into the name of this podcast. This has been my vision for years, is that financial planning industry has always said, oh, you got to have this boring 40-year plan. There's too many twists and turns in a 40-year span.
Lord, there's a lot that goes on in 40 years.
Yeah, so let's focus on what's important now. What's important today in this phone call or this meeting, or now that little son or daughter, has an illness or whatever it is. Yeah. And I mean, this totally makes sense going back to the whole what makes you happy. I mean, you can't be happy unless you got your ducks in a row, essentially, on what you're trying to accomplish, whether that's gathering assets, whether that's having a job you enjoy, retirement, organizing your house so you just feel better about the place you spend most of your day in. I mean, we can go on and on, but this what's important now concept makes a ton of sense to me. And maybe I'm the only guy in the world thinking that. But you know what? It's my flag and I'm going to wave it.
Well, no, you should wave it because, I mean, really and truly, that's what it comes down to, right? I mean, really, that's what it comes down to. What's important now is almost certainly different from what was important now, say 10 years ago, and what will be important now, say 5 years from now.
Oh, I just had this question. A college student was writing a paper, and they just asked if they could, kind of get some background on my career, essentially. Not necessarily putting my name on it, but writing a paper for their finance class. And I said that to him. I said, when I started the business I'm in, I never would have dreamt it would get as large as it is today. I never would have thought we would be as successful as we've been. And I'm not here to toot the horn, but it's like, to your point, there's been some twists and turns and changes, and for the good, but pretty soon you wake up and you don't go to work for the same reason that you used to. When I started this, I was busting my tail, because you wanted to build something and see what it turned into. And now this is like driving an ocean liner. You know what I mean? This is a big event, takes some forward thinking every day. But my day certainly looks different today than it did back then. And honestly, my priorities are different now at this age in life. If I'm, 53 years old, I'm not ready to hang it up yet. But maybe my objectives for what happens to the dollars my wife and I have left when we're done, it might not be just straight to the kids. Maybe we believe more in charitable causes now. You know what I mean?
Right.
Things change and your mind changes, and that's fine. As long as you understand that and you know where you want to go next.
Well, how do you help people get organized, Corey? I mean, what's a conversation like that sound like?
This sounds funny, but we found that, sometimes people come in, they say, oh, I've just got so much stuff that I don't know where to start. And what we'll say to them, and this sounds crazy, we'll say, we'll give you a box and we want you to put it all. Everything you think you want to get organized. Now, I'm not talking the stuff around the house. I'm talking financial related. So if you've got any kind of document that's insurance, investment, pension, tax returns, I can go down a laundry list, which we do on that too. And I'm like, just bring it in here. We'll sort it through. We'll put it in piles. We'll tell you what's important, what's not. We'll explain what you have to work with, what maybe is outdated. And people, you can just see the relief on their face when they're like, oh, you'll do that? We don't have to divide up the piles ourselves. It's like, it starts with communication and just some research. But a good advisor or a good advisory office with a team can do a lot of that legwork before you have meeting number 2 to figure out what the heck's got to be done next. It's like going to the doctor. You go there, you explain what you're up against, and then they come back with a prescription or a plan of action. And we do the same darn thing.
What's your advice for people who don't have a financial advisor? I mean, obviously, if they're listening to this, they should get in touch with you. But, and I'm not being facetious in the sense of, how do people go about choosing a financial advisor to help them be organized, like you're talking about?
Yeah. And this is interesting to me because history says that investing pretty much works about 3 out of 4 years on average. So what that means is the average person on the street who thinks they can do this all on their own and have their own research and stay on top of it, they're probably going to think they're pretty good 3 out of 4 years. But you know what happens? That 4th year, that average, by statistics year comes along, and it's not fun. And so that's the eye opener for a lot of people that then realize, well, this stuff maybe is harder than I thought. So what does that mean? It means unless you want to be an expert, do all the research yourself. And the talking heads on TV will say this too. If you're investing in individual stocks that you pick yourself, you should be doing some research every week on the ones you already own. So this is an ongoing project. So if you want to spend, 10 hours a week doing that, that's what you should be doing to try and get optimal success. For the vast majority of people, I don't think they have the time or the wherewithal or the understanding to do
or even necessarily the inclination.
Right. Correct. Absolutely correct. And that's where it could be the same thing with your tax return. You want to do your own tax return, do all the research every year of the updates? No, most people don't want to do that. So why wouldn't you team up with somebody and let them take the heavy lifting off the plate? Because we do this every day, and we pay a lot of money every month for research so that we can streamline our research, that I don't have to do 10 hours a week of research for Bill and 10 hours of research for Sally and Rachel. We have the ability to scale it and provide the knowledge and the solutions to make life easier for people. And other advisors and planners in our country do the same darn thing. You know what I mean? But you got to like who you're with. You got to trust them. And they got to talk to you in a real fashion so that they're not just blowing smoke.
Well, yeah. Yeah. So you're saying that part of this is just part of selecting a financial advisor comes down to an intuitive connection. And part of it comes down to a functional, real trust, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's right. And it's no different. I keep going back to this podcast. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of financial advisor podcasts. You know what? I'd put a line in the sand and say, at least mine's better and more entertaining than most of those because I make it real. There's a hell of a lot of them that just sound like a real monotone National Public Radio. Nothing against our friends at National Public Radio. But there are certain people you want in your corner when stuff gets real, for lack of a better phrase.
Right.
And you have to connect with that person. And again, we're to the point at our office where we don't necessarily work with every person that contacts our office. We want to make sure it's a good fit for both sides, because if we can't provide value and have clients and prospects that are accountable to deliver and communicate with us, then maybe somebody else is a better fit. But hey, on that front, we always work with friends and family and referrals of our existing clients because we believe that connection is absolutely real.
No, because you get a built-in testimonial.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Hopefully those people are like, we love the guidance that we get from Heimensen. So, absolutely go talk to those people.
There you go. So it all just makes sense to me. You know what I mean? From storage units to organization to making decisions today. Man, life isn't that hard if you can just connect the dots or have somebody else help you connect the dots.
Well, see, and there you go, folks. This is how you begin a podcast talking about storage units And you end it talking about financial advice and the importance of a financial advisor in terms of helping you get organized. Well done, Corey. Well done.
There you go. But maybe I should throw the gauntlet down and just see if there's any listeners out there that want to challenge me with a random topic, and I'll tie that to finance as well.
You know what? I want to emphasize the gauntlet having been thrown. For those who are listening, throw down the gauntlet Corey's way. And if you've got a topic that you think, I bet he can't talk about this, I want you to get in touch with Corey. And Corey, how would they do that if they want to get in touch with you to answer the challenge?
Yes, give us a call, 800-657-4316. Some of you out there have our website. You can email us as well. And I'll even sweeten the offer. If you give me a topic to challenge me, we'll buy you a coffee mug and free coffee for your own leisure at home. And if you can stump me, we'll buy you a t-shirt or something. I don't know. We'll come up. We'll have a prize, a stump prize. Tree. Hell, we could plant a tree if they stump me. How about that? There you go.
Oh, that's good. I like that. Plant a tree is great. I like that. I'm a big fan of trees. Got lots of them around here. Well, Corey, thanks. This has been a fun and interesting and, as always, entertaining podcast. And listeners, if you're listening for the first time, do you get a sense of what you're missing? Because this is really genuinely a pretty good example of the good time it's had here all the time. Right so on. If you like it, hit the subscribe button. That way you don't have to remember where you found it or how you get back to it. You just hit the subscribe button. It shows up on your listening device. You don't have to do searches. There it is, and you won't miss another episode. And we do humbly ask that you take the time, if you would, to rate and share the podcast, because by doing that, you help other people find out just what kind of a good time we have here with Corey, and you help the podcast grow in terms of listeners. On behalf of Corey, I'm Bill Tucker, thanking you for listening and encouraging you to live your best day today. Don't postpone it, because that's what's important now. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the WIN Podcast. What's important now? The show that helps you achieve your financial dreams. To ask questions about topics covered during the show or get a copy of Stop Doing Dumb Things with Your Money by Corey Heimensen, visit www.heimensenwealth.com or give us a call at 712-472-3867. Don't forget to click the follow button below to be notified when new episodes become available. Securities offered through Securities America Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered through Securities America Advisors Inc. Heimensen Wealth Advisors and Securities America are separate entities.